Hello everyone, welcome to my online prep. Today we'll be starting with Module B, Chapter 6, HR as a Strategic Player. In this chapter, we'll be learning about Strategic HRM, that is SHRM, then how strategy formation is done and it's implemented, what is the need for a distinctive HR strategy, how business can be created, how value can be created through the HR strategy, factor analysis in HRM, how we can connect strategy to organizations, execution of strategy, and finally aligning HR system with decision framework. So let us start with the first topic of this session. In the module 8, we have studied how the HR function has evolved over the few years in India as well as across the world, how this transformation has occurred. If we see the scenario of about 20 years ago, then it was unthinkable for anyone in HR to even consider spending time with the external customers. That is, HR were mostly concerned with the internal employees and there was no connection or there was no interaction with the external customers of the organization. Earlier, the only role was for the HR professionals to build the staffing, compensation, training, and other programs. It focused on the employees and kept companies legally compliant. That is, the focus was only on the internal customer, that is the employees of the organization. However, this scenario has changed. Now HR professionals have worked to become business partners and they are now aligning their work with the business strategies that have to be implemented. HR is playing an important role there as well. So they have been coached, they have been trained to spend time with the general managers and their counterparts in sales, marketing, and manufacturing so that they can ensure that the HR work helps deliver business results. This interaction is important. Why? Because this will give the HR an insight as to the practical or real-time working of all the factors of all the dimensions of the organizations, be it sales, marketing, manufacturing. So now they're not just concerned with creating these factors like compensation or training for the employees, but also they are interacting with their counterparts in the organization. This transformation in the philosophy of HR is driven by the necessity for the HR goals. The goal is to embrace the corporate goals. They have to align their own goals with the goals of the organization. So under this scenario, the HR cannot actually function in isolation. It has to function in tandem with the goals of each and every business vertical. It has to take decisions that will form a stepping stone or it will form as a guidance for all the dimensions, for all the verticals of the organization. So here the professional HR today needs to suitably equip with the business, marketing, technology, and all the other disciplines. And because of this, the various education and management institutions as well as universities, they have included a wide range of topics in the HR discipline as well. So now there is financial HR, there's marketing HR, business HR, and so on. This is the reason, this is how the scenario of HR has transformed in the last few years. Now we will see how a strategic HRM can be used for the efficiency of the organization. It is very important to have a well-defined strategy for the HRM function, and one important tool or mechanism that is most popularly used today is a scorecard. This is known as a balanced scorecard. It is a strategic planning and management system and it takes into account various factors, not only financial but also the non-financial aspects of corporate performance. Financial aspects could be the costs that are involved, the infrastructure, capital investment, but non-financial aspects are as well important, especially when we are talking about human resource management, such as customer satisfaction and business processes. There's the internal and external customer as well. There's the perspective of the employee, perspective of the operations. So all of this together will give us a complete picture of how a company is likely to perform, how it is expected to perform in the future. So it is important to take into account not only the financial matters but also the non-financial aspects. So here a balanced scorecard is used to reinforce good behavior in the organization by isolating four separate areas that need to be analyzed. These separate areas are called the four legs. Now we reinforce the positive behaviors. Reinforcing will make it stronger. Reinforcing will make the good behaviors stronger. Reinforcement can be done through rewards, appreciation, appraisals, and so on. So these four legs are enhanced further. These are learning and growth, business processes, customers, and finance. The balanced scorecard has these four aspects or these four pillars. So companies can easily identify the factors that are hindering their causing a hindrance in the performance of the company as a whole while viewing the company objectives. An organization can also use the scorecard to implement a strategy mapping so that they can see where value is added within an organization. Also, it can be used to develop the strategic initiatives as well as the strategic objectives. So it involves placing the right people at the right time, rewarding and deserving performers, reskilling and upskilling people. Now, let us separately discuss the four legs of a balanced scorecard. So these four legs of a scorecard are the aspects on which information is collected and analyzed. First aspect is the learning and growth. It can be analyzed through the investigation of training and knowledge resources. It handles how well the information is captured and how it is used for increasing the productivity, for gaining a competitive advantage over the other industries, over the other firms in the industry. Second aspect is the business processes. Here, how well the products are manufactured, the quality of the product can be used to analyze the business processes. We can use it to track if any gaps are there, delays, bottlenecks, shortages, the factors that are causing hindrances in the productivity of the organization, the current products. Then customer perspectives, how the customers, if they are satisfied or not with the quality, price, and availability of the products and services, if their needs are being satisfied, their needs are being met with the current products, or is there a need to modify it. Then we have the financial data such as sales, expenditures, incomes. This can be used to understand the financial performance. This helps us, it includes the receivables of the organization, the financial ratios, then the budgets, if the budgets are enough. So these four legs encompass the vision as well as the strategy of the organization, and actually it requires active management if we want to correctly gauge the performance, if we want to actually analyze the data collected. Therefore, the balanced scorecard is often referred to as a management tool. It is used as a management tool and not as a measurement tool. However, there are certain features or factors that have to be kept in mind while formulating a strategy for the organization. This is because the strategic approach in HR, this needs to go far beyond the definable terms in HR, and it is not actually easy to define each and every resource. So certain points have to be kept in mind, such as first, how strong is the linkage between the HR activities and the business strategy? Is the HR activity actually positively reinforcing the business strategy or not? Second, does the HR take an active part in the overall corporate strategy? Are they willing? They are willingly providing the correct advice as well as their contribution. Third, HR to play a vital support role by getting the best out of every single human resource. When the organization is employing a new person or they're recruiting someone from the market, so they are investing in the person. So it is the responsibility of the HR to make sure that they're getting the 100%, they're utilizing their skills to create an environment for optimizing the full potential of employees so that training and development can be conducted, and finally to put in place a structure and approach whereby continuous improvements are possible in all the major activities. The strengths can be increased, so that best fit or the right job, right person for the right job can be achieved. So these things have to be kept in mind while we are formulating a strategy for HRM. Now let us see how a strategy can be developed. Now, today in most organizations, HR only perform a support function, and it is more involved in just the resourcing and placement of people into the various functions. Organizations are still outsourcing various functions from the market. So, any HR or HR manager would not want their department to be put in the back office. That is why they want important functions or important roles to be assigned to them, not just recruitment and placement, but also for the development of the organization. So today professional companies, they rely on good human resources to take them where they intend to go. Therefore, the HR must align with the business and transform itself into a business partner rather than a supporter. Today, they are not playing just the role of a supporter, they want to play a role of a partner. And for that matter, HR would be successful only if they are coordinating, if they are connecting or aligning their goals with the goals of the corporation. So they need to build a strong team of professionals, and they need to command the respect of all others in the corporate. So we will see the structure of the HRM team. It should be, the constitution should be such that first it should have a resourcing expert who is able to identify each and every potential recruit as a considerable value addition to the organization. So recruitment then must no longer remain a routine activity. It should ensure that candidates are from the right profile, they remain in the organization, they should have a combination of education, then a good behavior that comes from the background, skills, as well as potential to grow. So resourcing expert is foremost. Second is the developer. The developer is the HR professional. They believe in a Pygmalion effort. So HR professional as a developer must play the role of a coach, catalyst, and above all a mentor. This effect refers to the HR acting as a leader and a mentor. That is, just if we take example of good schools, so there are good coaches and good teachers. They're able to turn or transform individuals into excellent students and outstanding sportsmen. Similarly, the HR professional should also work as a coach. They should be acting as a mentor for the organization, because mostly the people who are coming in the organization are from the young generation. They have limited experience. So the responsibility is the HR who will mentor them. They will provide them mentorship and increase in their skills. Then third, behavioral specialists. They need to look around and understand the undercurrents, the reason why there is a negative behavior in the organization. They have to guard against undesirable practices by getting an upper hand in the organization. Meaningful and contributory efforts should be put in. They should be a good mind reader, a specialist in body language. They should anticipate a problem before it grows into a larger one, and also they should have solutions ready. And then we have the role of value creator. Individuals have to create value, and there's a market full of stories where exceptional talent can be there in marketing, finance, or manufacturing. So the HR, they are looking for someone, or someone who has already value has been created over a period of time. So there is a commercial value that is attached to any individual. HR must be able to develop a people's analysis as to how they can understand the frustrations. They should design a motivational approach. These are just some of the examples. So they add value. The HR professional would be able to add value when they can help someone reach their goals. So the design and strategy should be such that the HR, they can develop the department, the professionals, they can produce positive outcomes for the key stakeholders, employees, and all others that are involved. Thus, HR will be respected only when they are developing these four roles, not just supporters, but as partners. Next topic is HR transformation. Now, this discussion is important because many organizations, they are putting it attempts for HR effectiveness, but they are doing so without defining the value of HR. They think they have understood, but they do not really understand the importance of value of the HR. So, for example, take EHR, such as portals and online employee services. They believe that they have transformed the HR, but they have not. Simply using the new technology or innovation that is available is not enough. While EHR may be a part of the overall transformation, it is actually only a way to deliver the administrative services. Moving towards serving centers, centers of expertise or outsourcing does not mean that HR has been transformed. Like we said, just using the new technology is not enough. If we are employing the latest technology, it will not mean that we have understood the need, understood the value of the HR services. If the new delivery mechanisms, they provide basically the same old HR services, then only the function has changed but not transformed. HR transformation, it changes both the behavior as well as the aspects of the organization. So transformation requires integrating the various HR practices and focusing them jointly on value added agendas such as customer connection, organization capabilities, and individual abilities. So we need to add value for the key stakeholders. Only then transformation will be occurred. So herein various questions can be answered or statements can be prepared, such as what is the goal of the organization, how the goal will be accomplished, when we need to perform, what we will invest in, then what will the goal be known for, etc. So these are some of the questions that have to be answered. Answering these questions, the first thing that comes to mind is that connecting these statements gives a vision to the organization. So basically, a fundamental transformation starts with the definition of the HR value, who are the receivers, and also a clear statement of what they will receive from the HR services, what is the goal and how it will be accomplished. So these endeavors and the need for HR, this will incorporate, when incorporated into the business plans, will give us the concept of the strategic HRM. So now strategic HRM is already clear. It is a process by which the organization can utilize the knowledge, the skills, as well as the abilities of the employees that they bring in together with their recruitment, how it can be formulated and executed for the business strategy. So it is linking the HRM, it is linking the HRM with the strategic role and objectives so that to increase the business performance. Now there are certain features of strategic HRM. First, it is an explicit linkage between the HR policy and the practices and the organizational environment. So there are three factors. First is the policy formulated by the HR plus the practices that are prevalent in the organization as well as the environment of the organization. Then it focuses on the organization's human resources. They are treated as the primary source of the organization's competitive advantage. Then the activities of the SHRM, they emphasize the HR programs, policies, and practices. They act the means through which the organization's people can be deployed to gain a competitive advantage. How well the programs and policies can be used so that the organization can have a competitive advantage in the industry. Then the pattern and plan, how is it? Is it to create a congruence between the HR strategy and the business strategy? Congruence means a positive correlation. The organization's business strategy as well as the HR strategy should go hand in hand, as well as the between all the HR verticals. Here, HR strategy and organizational strategy, when they are made together, it is known as the vertical fit, and when between all the HR activities, it is known as horizontal fit. This is important from exam point of view. You should remember what is vertical fit and what is horizontal fit. And then finally, the people, practices, and planned patterns. These are all purposeful. Each one has their own specific purpose, their role, and they are directed towards the achievement of the goals of the organization. So these are the essential features. These features have to be kept in mind when we are deploying a strategic human resource management policy in the organization. Next topic is premise of HR value. Now, what is value? Value is something that is received. So, value is not a factor that is related to the giver, rather, it focuses on the receivers. For example, in the case of the HR, the receivers are the employees as well as indirectly the customers. So, the professionals, they have beliefs, goals, and actions, and this will translate how well they want to bring value to the organization. To an employee, if they're worried about getting laid off, so the HR, their role would be to demonstrate by being more productive the employees can stay employed. To a line manager, if they're worried about reaching a proper strategic goal, then the role of the HR would be to provide them advice as to how they can line their own behaviors and activities. For the customers, they can create more interest through the products and services. So these are the areas where the HR can bring in value. So the HR professionals, they view the market environment and they should address certain questions when they are developing the strategy. First, what are the organizational capabilities that are required by the company when they're creating products and services that result in the customers taking money out of their wallets? That is, they should know what is the need of the customers. According to that, the capabilities of the organization should be developed. Then skills and abilities that are required so that they can understand and respond to the short-term and long-term market demands. Here in the research and development team, the marketing or the sales team, they should have these skills as so that it can understand the dynamic nature of the market. How do we invest in the HR practices and deliver the business results? How we can organize the activities to get the maximum value for the organization, and finally ensure that the HR professionals will know what to do and have the skills to do that. So the HR professionals, when they respond to these questions, they will know why others would benefit by listening to them, because they will be delivering the real value and the receivers will know what the value is. So they should start with keeping the receivers in mind. They should start with knowing the interest, the demands and requirements of the receivers. So herein, under the pattern of strategic SHRM, the HR professionals, they need to unlearn their traditional philosophy and they need to understand the dynamic nature. Now, under this, there are certain roles, new roles that are assigned to the strategic HRM today. These new roles are under three heads. First is the core people role, second is the organizational value added role, and third is the business transformation role. They have to act as the core people role, in which they will perform functions such as selection, providing them orientation, career development, motivation, compensation, welfare services, retention, and attrition. So this is related to the employee. Not just their recruitment, but also their training, development, and motivation. Second, organizational value added role. Under this, the HR technology services, creating a learning work environment, organizational development and consulting. Herein, the responsibilities related to the organization objective. And finally, business transformation role. Under this, they need to create a flexible work culture, align the HR activities to the business strategies, implement the organizational change as well as transition with ease, and assess the return on investment, the ROI on the human capital. How well the investment can gain maximum returns. This comes under the business transformation role. So the traditional roles of HRM has changed and the new roles, they involve these three heads. So this is how HR works as a strategic player and strategic HRM can be implemented. Next topic is HR strategy formulation and implementation. So there are various models that have been presented for developing the HR strategy. Under this, there is the 7-step model for using HR as a strategic business asset, in which first step is providing clarity and articulation of the business strategy. We need to clarify what is the business strategy, what are the goals. Second, develop the business case for the HR as a strategic asset. The need for HR has to be emphasized. Case developing a case means creating a positive attitude towards HR. Third step, create a strategy map for the firm under which factors such as the business indicators like leading and lagging should be presented. Results or the goals that are the tangible as well as the intangible goals. This should be mentioned in the third step. Fourth step is to identify the HR deliverables within the strategy map. What are the goals that can be reached using the HR strategy? Fifth step is to align to coordinate the HR architecture with the HR deliverables. That is function, system, and strategic employee behaviors. What are the tools that are available? Then we have the sixth step in which we design the strategic measurement system. That is the HR scorecard, for example, the balance scorecard and result measurements, tangible as well as intangible. Finally, after all these steps, seventh step would be to execute management by measurement. Now, after this step, we need to periodically test the HR measures against the firm strategy and adjust as required. If we find any kind of gaps or delays in the strategy, then we need to modify it, and this process will again start from the step 3. That is, if we need to modify it, we will again create a strategy map, identify the deliverables, functions of the HR and the measurement system, and implement it. So this is the whole steps. These 7 steps are there under which we can use HR as a strategic business asset. Next, evolution of the HR strategy. Developments over the last decades have suggested that HR has a direct impact on the business performance, since the architecture influences how effectively the business can execute its preferred strategy as well as its goals. So the contribution of the HR strategy can also be measured. It needs to show that it is helping control the costs by driving out the inefficiency. It is also creating value for the organization by intersection between parts of the architecture and strategy implementation. And there are the conventional metrics like position, the turnover rates. They need to be replaced by the new metrics that fulfill the internal customers' demands, the subject of the course, as well as the legal compliances. So these are the 3 new metrics that have been used to measure the HR functionalities. So how the role has evolved? The HR role within a firm has evolved over the past century. First, the traditional perspective was to view the HR or the earlier personal department as being purely administrative. That is, they were just focusing on the administrating of benefits and payroll. But that has changed. Now HR functions more on the human factor. Then in the 1990s, HR started to be seen as a strategic asset. That is, the personnel, hiring as well as developing exceptional employees. In the compensation, reward system, appraisal system has been introduced, alignment, executing wherever management wants, and high performance to achieve the greatness and expertise. So this is how the role of HR has evolved over the past century. So now, how the strategy once prepared, if we use the 7 steps, then how can we implement it? There are certain steps that are involved. First, the HR manager, they should identify all the HR performance and the enablers, all the deliverables which exist within the map. They need to correctly identify where the HR creates most of its value. So the potential costs, they have to be identified, the value has to be identified. Also, they need to calculate the return on investment, the ROI in HR. This can be done using certain steps. First is to identify all the potential costs. Costs, there are fixed costs as well as variable. Fixed costs that do not vary with the production level, and variable costs that change directly with the level of output as well as the sunk cost. For example, fixed cost could be land, land on which the firm has been established, or in our example, the bank is existing. Variable cost can be the employee's salary. Employee's salary. Land will remain the same, building will remain the same. It will be fixed 111 at each level of production. but the salary will keep on increasing as the number of employees are increased. It can be from 1,000, 2,000, and so on. So it varies, it changes. Second, identify the likely benefits. This is the revenue generation, investment on human assets, also high performing employees. They should be, their contribution should be measured as opposed to the low performing employees. So the economic impact of average performance must get compensated by superior performance. And then we need to calculate the return on investment. It can be expressed as a percentage or counted in cash terms, or simply indicating the amount of time required before the program covers its cost. So it can also be known as the break even point. Covers its cost, that is the investment that is put in and the profit that is generated becomes equal. So this is the break even point. So these factors can be used. Now, how can we calculate the ROI on human capital? There's a formula for this. We can calculate the ROI on human capital by dividing the organization's net value by the costs of salaries and benefits. So the formula can be written as the net revenue divided by the net expenditure, by the cost of expenditure, the salaries. Net revenue can be calculated as the gross revenue minus the operating expenses, salaries and benefits. So divide the organization's net revenue by the cost of salaries and benefits. And if we want to calculate the ROI of a particular program, we first need to calculate the value of the specific program itself, and then we will divide it by the cost of implementing the program. For example, if a training program of speed production factory line results in an increased amount of product, then we will calculate the value of the additional product and we will divide this by the cost of providing the training and materials. So the additional product value divided by the cost that has been incurred. This will give us the ROI on human capital. Next, what is the importance of a strategic management system? First, a HR scorecard that we discussed, it has four basic dimensions. There are the HR deliverables. They will identify the causal relationship through which the HR will generate the value in the firms, also with the emphasis on the HR performance drivers and the HR enablers. It will tell us the exact impact it will have on the full HR. So HR deliverables are there. Then we also need to know the high performance work system. This will consist of the policies, processes, and the practices. Then also important to know how the HR system is aligned with the key key performance drivers. So here the key efficiency matrix that we are talking about, this will have two categories to measure the core efficiency, and then there are the strategic efficiency measures. So the core efficiency measures, they tell us the significant expenditure items which make no direct contribution to the firm's strategy. On the other hand, the strategic efficiency measures, these are the activities and the processes. These will determine as per the new cost or the cost per trainee hour, expenses per employee. So these are the strategic efficiency measures. Under this, an important concept is execute management by measurement. A well-constructed HR scorecard, this will allow the managers to monitor their input into the firm's result on an ongoing basis. They can understand whatever inputs they are putting, whatever efforts they are putting in, is it actually working? We can also make periodic adjustments to ensure that the architecture remains aligned with the strategy of the firm. We can monitor the inputs, their results, and we can also see that the HR scorecard, they can solve any long-standing problem or can do something significant. This will create a momentum and will strengthen the regular updates as well as the validation programs that are necessary in today's competitive environment. So making an ongoing investment in the methodology and people will gradually get on side with the scorecard. because now they will see that they are achieving what they had planned for. Thus, developing a strategic management system is important for the HR. Next, what is the relationship between corporate strategy and the HR strategy? Now, the Indian traditional businesses have been exposed to the global competition, and there are questions asked about what value the business group adds to each individual business. So, most groups have now focused on HR as an area for bringing in change. Big companies like the Aditya Birla Group and the RPG Group, these are some of the examples of the prominent business houses that have made visible that they're implementing the HR arena towards increasing professionalism. Also, groups like Tata's, they have understood the need of HR initiatives and they are acting as powerful examples. So, companies with otherwise strong HR strategies like the software majors, the new challenges are likely to be on a fresh dimension, that is mergers and acquisitions. Now M&A, mergers and acquisitions are now coming as forward as a new challenges. So considering the importance of these challenges that are coming in the new times, here important is to leverage the same to the overall corporate objectives. And the global institutions have now initiated the HR excellence awards as well. Major tycoons like Times now have also installed these functions so that they can increase their competitiveness. They can also increase the compliance of discipline in the organization. So such initiatives are actually proof to the importance and value to the HR function under the ages of the changing profile of business organization. Under this, one important change that has occurred is known as the individual development plan that is being implemented. So what is this individual development plan? It is a discussion forum or an annual conversation between a manager and a staff member. It can be transformed into an action plan of the realistic steps that the employee can take for to help them to build a desired skill, better use of existing talents, or prepare for a career growth. So the employee, they will discuss their goals, the skills that they want to acquire with their manager, and the manager will help the employee to enhance the professional growth. They can do so by setting goals for professional development, identifying ways to learn or improve in the important competencies so that in the future they can achieve the goals, on to identify the strengths, talents and passions and planning ways to use them on a job. So the managers, they are providing guidance and mentorship to the employees so that they can enhance their skills. So this is known as the individual development plan. Individually, the development of goals of a particular person is done or is achieved by the help of the manager. So this is how a distinctive HR strategy, its need is described in the organization. Next topic is creating business value through HR strategy. So one of the key success factors of the high performing organization is if they're putting their people first, if they're keeping in mind the interest of their employees. Today, the HR executives, they are challenged to develop efficient and effective solutions so that the people side of the business can be developed. And based on the HR strategy framework, Deloitte is actually quite famous. They have uniquely positioned to assist the organization to strengthen it, the strategic role, and they have proposed the 10-step approach. A 10-step approach positioned by Deloitte helps organizations to define and execute an effective HR strategy. Deloitte is definitely a well-known firm for providing audits, assurance, consulting, financial advisory, etc. So this framework is quite famous and also it has proved through the empirical researches. So first under this is define the human capital value. There are two steps involved in the strategy. First is to understand the business strategy. Understanding the business strategy requires the market forces that are involving the trends as well as the business that is created. And then second step is to define the HR strategy for creating a unique competitive advantage. The company can leverage the human capital. These are the two steps involved in defining the human capital value. Then after that, next strategy is to align the HR products and services. Under this, first step would be to segment the HR customers, identify the critical workforce, and then tailor specific programs and services. Fourth step, prioritize the HR investments, identify all the projects that are there in the organizations, and then the expected costs, benefits, and the primary focus. Fifth step under this strategy itself is designing the HR services. Design and implement the solutions that are critical to ensure the execution of the HR strategy. This is the fifth step. Then third strategy is delivering value, under which we have step 6, ensuring the right HR service delivery model. Herein, think through the people-related business challenges, analyze the current service delivery model. If there is need, then modify it. Seventh step, establish the right HR capabilities, advanced skills that are required for the organization's competencies and capabilities. Eighth step is to improve the HR operational excellence, that too continuously. This can be done so by providing the supporting tools, processes, as well as infrastructure to help the HR staff succeed. Ninth step is to build the HR brand, understand and communicate the value of the HR throughout the business leaders. And finally, 10th step is to measure the impact of HR products and services. That is, identifying the key performance measures to track the return on investment on the HR practices. So HR scorecard, like we said, scorecard is a tool that can be used to measure the contribution to the overall performance of the organization. And the key challenge is to make a strategy that will contribute to the organization. So this framework can be used for creating business value through the HR strategy. Next topic is factor analysis in HRM. Factor analysis is actually a concept that is used in psychology. First was used in 1904 by a psychologist named Charles Spearman. He was a child psychologist. He worked in the field of psychology, and he suggested that the performance of school children was nearly as it was related to certain common factors. Then later on, Raymond Cattell, another Raymond Cattell developed a 16 factor model for personality to explain intelligence. So these factors are the characteristics that can be used to explain the behavior of the individual. If we talk about the features and concept of factor analysis in the organizational term, so it is a statistical method. It is used to group the variables by the closeness of the relationships to each other, and the closely related items are thought to measure the same issue or aspect of work. So the reasons or the factors, the variables that can affect a particular work, this comes under one particular factor. So it is used as a factor analysis. And factor analysis, it can be seen as a useful tool for investigating the viable relationships for the complex behavior, for the complex concepts that are not easy to understand. So it shows that each item only belongs in one factor, and these factors are also sometimes called as dimensions because they have been determined through a factor analytical process. So this analysis, a factor analysis, is done basically for the interpretation of data and analyzing the underlying relationships to determine the consumer behavior. So instead of grouping the responses and the response types, the factor analysis, what it does, it segregates the variable and groups these according to their co-relevance, how they are co-relevant, how they affect each other. This is how it will segment. And then these analyses are conducted to understand the behavior, the socio-economic status, various factors such as the psychological mind of the customers, how it works. Thus, factor analysis is used. Now, there are certain types of factor analysis. These are basically three main types. First is exploratory factor analysis, which is done to measure the underlying factors that affect the variables in data structure. They do not set any predefined structure to the outcome. the underlying factors are measured. Second, confirmatory factor analysis to confirm, right? To reconfirm the effects and correlation. Earlier, the predetermined factors, these are stated beforehand, and then we need to reconfirm that actually they're affecting the variables. Is there a positive correlation between them or not? And then third is the structural equation modeling. It hypothesizes a relationship between a set of variables and factors. Hypothesis or hypothesizing means creating a tentative solution. We do not know if it is true or false, we need to measure it. So these causal relationships or the linear equation models are used to see whether or not actually a correlation exists between the different variables. So factor analysis can be conducted on the basis of the need of the organization. According to the purpose and objective of the analysis, it can be of two other types. First is the principal component analysis, in which a unique solution is provided so that the original data can be reconstructed from the results. It not only provides a solution but also provides data from the solution. It also works the other way around. Either we can generate the solution or we can then generate the data. In both the directions it works. And this solution generated includes as many factors as there are variables. If there are 4 variables, there will be 4 factors. So this is the principal component analysis. Purpose, either to generate the data or to provide the solution. Then common factor analysis, here to estimate the common difference or the variance from the original variables to generate the solution. Variance means how it differs from a one particular number. So the original variables, if there is high variance, then it will mean that there is high divergence from the original variable. Due to this, the number of factors will always be less than the number of original factors. So these 2 points are important to remember from exam point of view. Under principal component analysis, variables is equal to factors. Under common factor analysis, the number of factors will be less than the number of original variables. So this is the common factor analysis. These two can also be used as the type of factor analysis. Now let us see how factor analysis can be applied. For example, suppose an organization wants to know whether certain aspects like task skills are working properly. For that, they can generate a questionnaire containing 20 questions. 10 of the questions can be related to the task elements and 10 to the any other form such as the communication. So these are the two factors, task and communication. Accordingly, a small group will be used, questionnaire will be distributed and answers will be collected. The HR processes, initiatives, all can be measured using the questionnaire. So this is how factor analysis can be used to check the efficacy of the HR processes. So in order to examine the relationship between the factors that are extracted from the various HR practices, correlation test can be carried out between the factors, and to reduce the item factor analysis to be carried out. Correlation test. If there is a positive correlation, this will mean that the factors development as well as the HR practices, they are going hand in hand. Increase in the practice will lead to increase in the development. So positive correlation. So it can be used to draw the inferences. Conclusions on efficacy, implications, all can be listed out. These attributes like motivation, performance, job satisfaction, they can be questioned using the questionnaire. It provides the relationship between multiple independent factors. So here factor basically means the independent variable, and although in this case the factors are the new virtual variables, so independent variables, factors that are going to be tested. How these factors will have effect on the performance. So factors become the independent variables and the performance becomes the dependent variable. So factor analysis will tell us how effectively the HR practices are working. The efficacy of various HR processes can be evaluated. Next topic is connecting the strategy to organizations. Now, all good strategy has to convert itself into the meaningful action and desirable results. A strategy would be successful only if put in action they can derive the results. So here we will examine the impact of good strategic action in major HR functions. First we have the acquisition of employees. It is the first step, that is to prelude to the talent execution as to how many talents are required at what time and at what place. This is known as the HR planning. That is how many employees are required, where the employees are working, and the internal and external challenges as well as opportunities. This is the first step. Here the real challenge is to understand in the upcoming years will be to predict the demand for the products and services and then to predict the manpower needs. So to fully understand the value and effectiveness of the selection process, one has to analyze the impact of employees' contribution. This should not only be from the point of view of cost factor but also from performance in the short term as well as the long term. So because the effectiveness of the organization depends on how well the employees are working, so human capital is an important factor. Also important is to examine the effectiveness of the planning process, advertisement and recruitment, then effectiveness of the interviewers. They are selecting the candidates, so they should have the skills to select the right one, change in the pool of the qualified candidates, and the performance on the job. So all of these processes, this will determine how acquisition of employees can be done. So this is the first step. A good strategy will result in best acquisition of employees. Another area where a good strategy is required is the training and development. Three important points are there. Training refers to the skills, development refers to the modification of behavior, and then there is education that will result in overall development of the individual in the social sense, then the intellectual sense, and so on. So training and development is a source of competitive advantage, and there's a need to develop framework. For example, Skill India mission is there to provide actual benefit. It is important to provide training to the employees to provide them the required skills for better employment. So once the training needs are identified, proper training plan has to be developed. Third step is the identification of employees for the respective training program. Which employees actually need training? We should not put in these employees just like that. It will increase the cost of the organization. And then once the training is completed, we need to assess the efficacy of training. Has actually training helped in increasing the knowledge and skills of the employee? So there should be a constant focus on the employees who are subject to the training in terms of assessing their post training. If it is successful, then the training can be used in future, or else it will be modified according to the gaps or delays that are noticed. Third area is performance management. Here systems are made clear to the employees as to what is expected of them and assure that the managers and the planners that employee behaviors will be in line with the company's goals. So these systems are geared to ensure that each employee, they know based on the previously conducted job analysis, they are performing the tasks that are intended at the expected level so that the strategic business objectives can be met. So there they are knowing the expectations as well as they are working accordingly to the task that is provided to them. Herein, effective performance management is a process where each employee is fully aware of their role, the type of output as well as the output as to how it will be measured. So starting from the quantity of effort as well as the quality of effort. This will be gauged under the performance management systems. And one of the critical strategies here is to understand the fundamental role of each employee in achieving the mission of the organization. By clearly identifying the purpose and role, one is able to identify where deficiencies can exist. They can develop corrective actions, they can identify the strengths, weakness, provide them training, and contribution to the financial bottom line of the organization. So performance management also comes under a good strategy. And finally, every organization requires a well-developed reward system. A number of studies have shown that effective reward systems can increase the motivation of individuals to increase their performance. This is performance based incentives. This is the reward system. So the fundamental intent is to provide incentives to achieve the individual as well as the organizational behaviors. This will enable the organization to create better opportunities for the individuals if they want to improve. For example, some employees might get motivated through financial rewards. Others, they get enough motivated through the non-financial ones like career advancements, appreciation, recognition. So it is important to assess the interest of the employee. So needs and drives of the individuals, they differ from each other. And the fundamental intent is to provide incentives to achieve the individual positive behavior. A survey was conducted by Watson Wyatt. It concluded that organizations that have a well-developed reward system, they link to business strategy, they had great extent higher returns than those with less of a linkage. So there's a positive relationship between a well-developed reward system and higher returns in the organization. Another conclusion was given by Schuster that organizations, they are using pay systems, they perform better than the traditional pay counterparts. So basically we can conclude that a proper well-developed reward system will have positive impact on the efficiency of the organization. So it is important to properly assess the needs of the employees and develop the reward system. So this is, we can say that there's a positive connection between the strategy and organizations. Next topic is strategic execution, that is execution of the strategy. Under it, we have a 5-point agenda for the HR professionals. For the business and HR strategies to be integrated well, it is apparent that the top management, they should work closely with each other. So there are certain steps or ways in which they can enhance their ability to contribute to this integration process. First, the HR professionals must spend more time and effort understanding the business environment and the key strategic issues. If the professionals, they have an understanding of the organization, then only they would be able to generate the right policies. The factors like volatility of different markets, the demand, decisions, business environment, and so on. They should also get more involved in the nitty gritties of the business. Nitty gritty means in the operational details as well as the issues. Individuals that have a good track record or those that do not, opportunities should be provided accordingly. Training, development, particular important area that is critical should be more focused on. They should also move towards an integrated look at the people in the organization. They should bridge the gap between HR and the IR. IR refers to the industrial relations. So bridging the gap, bringing in together, taking in the advices of the IR department as well to ensure the output and the quality. So this service organizations such as banks, herein it is important that the employees, they should see themselves as professionals. Then HR professionals must see themselves as knowledge workers and facilitators of knowledge flows in the organization, because organizations today are more and more dependent on leveraging the knowledge from within the organization. So herein documentation as well as sharing of information for decision making is important. Then HR professionals need to change from a support paradigm to a more value creation paradigm to be recognized as important contributor. Here their need is to be measured in the right framework. So HR professionals, they should change their traditional philosophy and should be working on the value creation. So this is the 5-point agenda. This is should be the agenda for the HR professionals in the future. Next, let us see how HR system can be aligned with decision making framework. So decision framework requires various roles that are played by the HR. First, strategic contribution of HR to the business. The human resources, it is a support function. It should strategically contribute to the overall business goals of the organization, not just on recruitment, planning, compensation, but the overall goals of the organizations should be aligned with the goals of the HR. Second, alignment of HR systems with decision making. So proper alignment of these systems should be there. That is, they should be able to give advices as much as possible. Their advices should be highly recognized because they have the right skills and experience. Also, there's a role of HR in acquiring and developing the individuals. For acquiring the right individuals, necessary skills and attitudes, as well as fostering or enhancing their growth through skill development. This is another important area where the HRs work. Then strategic decision making by the employees. They should understand the fact that employees would work best if they feel that their opinion is being valued, that they are working as a professional in the organization. So other leaders, they're able to analyze the data. For that, employees, their decisions should be taken into account. Strategic HRM is also of very much essence to the organization. The integration of HR practices forms the essence of strategic HRM. It contributes to the organization's sustained performance as well as growth. The strategies that are prepared as to starting from first step recruitment to training and achievement of the goal, it requires strategic HRM. Understanding the organizational behavior, how the people feel, their thought process work, their actions within and around the organization. It can be leveraged for developing the reward systems. Link is there between the organizational behavior and the business goals. Again, how the people's thoughts, emotions, and behaviors they correspond to the organization's intent is crucial. It is important to create a positive correlation between the behavior and the goals. Use of data in HR and leadership. We need to understand the historical experiences of the organization. Through conducting feedback as well, we can understand how the workforce influencing their behavior, predicting their responses, and finally the predictive abilities of HR and the leaders. Strategy, financial profitability. These are factors. Other than that, the predictive abilities will require as to how the individuals will respond to a particular change in the organization. So understanding the behavior, this should be the key ability of the HR. So future based on historical data as well as current environment, this should be the focus. So the HR system is definitely aligned with decision making framework. It can contribute to better and correct decision making. Finally, we need to see the business strategy and HR strategy implementation in the Indian scenario. So the discussion so far has shown us that HR plays an important role in formulating the business strategy. There's a positive correlation that works in both the directions. Business processes are driven by individuals and the organizations. These are driven by the organization strategy, plans, procedures. So there's a positive correlation between the individuals and the organizations. Therefore, as a part of the strategic HRM, the organizations need to implement not only the strategies, they also need to ensure that these strategies are complementary to each other. They are positively helping each other. For example, in order to strategically support the business, the individuals require the right skills, then they should have the right knowledge, attitudes, leadership abilities, and good decision making strategies. So there's a positive correlation. The biggest example of this in India is of the Tata consultancy services. In the starting, students only viewed Tata as a passport to the foreign nations, but now they understand that with the increasing time, the demands of the individuals or the youngsters is changing. It is now seen that the image is relatively poor. Only it is seen as a poor paymaster and merely a passport to the US. So earlier it was a positive factor for the students, but now it has become a negative factor. So this is the best example. So Tata also needs to change their strategic implementation, their HR value to increase their recruitment ability. So to sum up, in this chapter, we saw the strategic nature of HR and how it can be used as a tool for organizational development. We also understood the function, strategy, how can it be applied. Also the concept of factor analysis in the implementation of HRM. With this, we have come to the end of this lesson. Keep learning with us. Thank you.